Today we're testing 7 different color PPF films on the Cybertruck, so let's get right into it. What film is really going to work best for our customers in mind? So this is a kind of a sneak peek of our R&D process, a very small part of it, and a lot of these films I have installed in the past, but not necessarily on a Cybertruck. So we're going to be testing these and trying to, it's not really like scoring it or necessarily, but getting my opinion on as far as like how it installs. I have primered already on the edges. What we realized with color PPF, you definitely should, and I think recommended that you use Primer 94. It is an adhesion promoter by 3M that is very commonly used in the wrap universe. So we have 6 different brands. As I install, I'll kind of talk about my thoughts, and then we'll kind of move on to the back, do our research and like write our findings, and then rip it off, do the next one, and so on. Most of it are going to be wet installs. So what that means is you use a soap solution, and what I found out with PPF over steel is I like to go a lot soapier than I normally would if I were doing a normal like Model 3, right? So what we do first before we get started on top of the prep is get it hydrated and all that stuff. So we got 2 squeegees over here. I'm gonna go get the film. So I had one of our staff help us, but the first step is going to just lay it down, just like so, okay? And you can see this is pretty dang blue. This is such a cool color though. And I already have slip solution underneath. I think a lot of professionals will know what STEK is. It is a very commonly used brand. It's a well-respected brand, and they were pretty early on in the PPF, the color PPF, and they came out with some crazy colors, you know, Dino Red, Dino Miami Blue, and a bunch of others. They've really been, I think, moving up fast in this industry, so that's really awesome. So right away, I'm just gonna show you guys, look how easily that moves. And this part of the process is you gotta make sure that you have the right slip solution, and I don't think I have any issues right now with movability. So the next part of this is going to be thickness, and I'm doing it in millimeters, and it is about 0.23. Yeah, like 0.22 is actually our measurement. Well, let's go ahead and start installing. Check this out. I mean, it moves really well actually. Very, very easy to move around. I like how it feels. And just one note on all our patterns is I'm actually using our finalized pattern for the gloss and matte. So just keep that in mind. For the color PPF one, it will actually cover all the edge, but just bear with us. So let's go ahead and get this aligned. I'm gonna just start aligning certain parts over here. So first off, we're gonna go ahead, align this part right here. And then the next is going to be right here in this corner, and work our way down. I think one of the things that I'm kind of imagining is a lot of people are going to go kind of hard like this. So if I do that, it does create a line. This is the same thing for like gloss, right? Like gloss and matte, like if you do that, it's gonna be pretty bad. So you just need to keep that in mind. You don't wanna like just stab at the film itself. But sensitivity, I mean, I don't think that it's like overly sensitive, but I do think that it's about the same like most films out there. We're gonna go ahead and align right here. This one will go right to the edge, just because we are, like I said, we are working off the gloss and matte, where it goes right to the edge. And I think that's the thing when we're teaching, we don't teach people how to stab. What we're trying to do is really just glide it. And part of that is just using a lot of slip and making sure that you have plenty of it underneath, but then also on top, right? Because if you have it all dry, it's going to stutter, and then when that stutters, it can damage the actual film. Same thing, focusing on the body line as well for here. One thing that we do want to do is also just spray down all the edges with tack. So what we're going to do is we're just going to flush it all out. And then we're going to just make sure that it is past where it needs to go. Boom. The reason why we do this is a lot of the times there's a lot of still soap around the edges that kind of just sit there. So the tack solution, if it's just water, what you're doing is you're flushing out all that soap so it doesn't just rest in these edges. And eventually over time, will actually kind of seep in, which means that you could have bubbles on the edges. So we're what we call edge sealing as well. So we're just sealing all the edges. So as we kind of wait for the edges to sit and get a little drier, let's talk about a little bit of this appearance. I think this is one of the really, really cool colors. I did see a Cybertruck wrapped in this. I think it was this brand. One thing that's really unique about colored PPF is just how freaking shiny it is. It is so deep, like the gloss. It feels like a very good paint job, to be honest. So if you look at this reflection, I mean, it's so little orange peel. I mean, it just looks so good. So I got this giant cup over here and just wanted to show you what kind of coating it has. I mean, that sheets off pretty easy. A lot of these films now come coated, right, out of the box. However, I still recommend like coating it with another layer of ceramic coating, mainly because like these typically tend to wear off a lot sooner because it's done in factory. On top of that, it also just means that it's going to be a lot easier to actually clean and keep clean. I normally would have let this dry just like on its own. I mean, sometimes we use like an air compressor, but our air compressor right now is down. But we're trying to dry and get rid of all the liquids and then make sure that all the edges are sealed already. And you're just going to use a little bit of heat. Just a little bit of heat and you could just start folding it over. There's some liquid there, so just keep that in mind. But you can see right here, it doesn't really have any issues of folding over right now. So let's go ahead and keep going. And a lot of times we'll use like a wrap glove or something like that. Folding over really well. Let's do this big area. Yep, no issues. I think that adhesion promoter is going to help quite a bit. And then focus on the notch first, and then you would work your way around it. There you go. So I'm not going to do every single edge because I think all the edges are going to be quite similar. For this particular design that I did, obviously there's a notch right there. But for PPF, it'll be more of a less aggressive notch. But it's going to fold over and overlap so that you do have that full coverage. However, I did not really have many issues. I can definitely tell if you're comparing like vinyl, color vinyl, and colored PPF, the edges are significantly easier, in my opinion, on the colored vinyl. So I think the edges are going to take a lot longer. So you might have to really spend a lot of time making sure all the edges are prepped, primered, and that will save a lot of time in the long run. But it didn't really have issues. I think it will hold. So it's a beautiful film. So I would definitely recommend this one. This is really, really awesome, easy to use. All right, so the next that we're actually going to be talking about is going to be Avery Dennison's. It is an awesome film as well. They've been around for a long time. So they have a lot of vinyl already out there, and then their PPF is relatively new, but they've been really trying to push other products like this one. But when we were doing the testing a while ago, like something very similar to this, we really enjoyed working with it. And it was a good film. That being said, that kind of became our main product line for all our do-yourself PPF products. As far as the thickness goes, I'm going to go ahead and measure it. And then this one is about 0.20, slightly less than like the STEK. All right, so same thing here. We kind of aligned this already. I'm going to go ahead and just squeegee it down. Go ahead and hydrate it. All right, there you go. That's there. The movability is pretty good. Obviously, I tacked the top. I probably shouldn't have tacked that right away, but I would almost say the STEK did move maybe a little bit better, maybe a little easier, but I wouldn't say it's that much far off. Yeah, this is moving pretty easy. And then, so kind of like what I did on that one, I did the hard stab at it. I might do kind of the same thing. It glides really well, right? I mean, as long as you have a lot of slip solution. I'm gonna do the same thing. If you stab it, what happens? Same thing, don't stab. But as far as like the sensitivity goes, I mean, it's about the same thickness. I mean, you're talking on a very, very small level. It does dent it just a little bit. As far as like the sensitivity of the film, I think they're about the same. I'm gonna go ahead. Cool. Looks great. We're testing this in parts of the hood, and I just remember it being such an easy film to work with. That's a mirror. So as we are kind of completing all this, the appearance on this is phenomenal. Kind of like similar to what I said to the previous one. It is just unmatched. I'm just amazed at how freaking like glossy it is. And then the other part of this is going to be the hydrophobicity. You can see right here, and then boom, right away. It is so hydrophobic, it just shoots off. This is kind of the same thing, factory coated, and then you can see it all beating off. So very, very hydrophobic. So for something like this too, it will have very, very good resistance to something like Sharpie or something very, very, I guess, etching or staining, mustard or bird poop or bug guts and stuff like that. Okay, so we're gonna be just doing this edge right here, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna flush this all out. We're gonna just make sure that all the edges are no bubbles. All right, so always want to start at the body line. So I'm just gonna fold that over. Wow, that was pretty easy. So I want to do, this is going to be the more difficult part right here, because this is that corner where the body, there's a body line right there. I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, I actually haven't used any heat so far. So it's kind of impressive. And you can see that even at that body line, I was able to push it down. I would say this is, the edges are amazing on these. It just sticks really, really well. And again, all of these have adhesion promoters, so I think, to be honest, for all color PPF, the most difficult part isn't going to be about the installation as far as like squeegeeing down. I think that will, like, once people get used to it, it'll be really easy. But what's going to be very difficult is going to be the edges. You do need to fold over pretty much every outer surface area, right? We're going to go ahead and rip this off camera, and then we're going to be installing the next ones. So before we kind of install this, what we've been talking about is like, how did we learn about this? I first heard about it in SEMA. They're also made in Korea, and there's been a really big innovation happening in South Korea regarding colored PPF. So it's very interesting. And STEK is also from Korea, IVIOS, Ultrafit, and some of the ones from like Avery Dennison is also being made in Korea. So So one of the things that they like to claim is that they have some insane hydrophobic properties. So they did this testing where they put like the pen test or I think curry test. They put curry for a long time and then they got rid of like the stain. So it doesn't stain. So that's one of the things that we noticed even in the other testing that we did, which we'll also link below, where IVIOS just outperformed most of the film. So that was very, very interesting, I think, in terms of the performance of the film itself. When we removed it about a week later, incredibly hard to remove as well. So the adhesion is just very, very strong. This one measures and comes in at 0.26. Yep, 0.26. I'm just going to do it in several areas. So it's definitely a little bit thicker, but you can see that they're all about the same. So let's go ahead and just move this around a little bit. It slides really well. I think it doesn't tack as much. And like I said, I like using a little bit more soap solution compared to like a normal PPF. On the steel, it definitely holds and grabs a lot more than I'm used to. Awesome. So it tacks really well. There you go. Movability was really good. Tackability was great. All right, we're gonna like aggressively just line it up and just see what kind of line I get. Just push it down. Okay, so I did that. It's gonna be really hard to see on camera. I got a little bit of line, but that's gonna be expected across all the films. But that's one of the things like we're gonna try to teach in our courses is like not to stab and then go, but it does create a mark. But I just don't think that there's going to be any film that's going to be able to, I guess, protect itself against that. Look at that. There you go. Boom. And you're doing overlapping strokes. Honestly, working with this film so far is nice. I mean, they feel it's very comfortable, very natural. Whether you like this or not, like this color, it's just incredible. It's a chameleon-like color. Has purple when I look at it this way, has green, and then you look at some areas and it looks like pink. And I love the metallic flakes on it, and I think even like you can see the reflection right here, it's just so clear. And then we are also gonna do a quick test. You could see it right off the bat. Look at that. I mean, very similar from all the ones that you saw, STEK and Avery, but it is also coated from factory. But let's now get into the edges. So we're gonna do the same thing and flush out. So we wanna let it sit really dry, and as time goes by, the adhesion really gets strengthened. We haven't let this sit at all for like any time, but we're gonna go ahead and use some of our fingers to kind of fold it over. And when we did it in the first one that we did on this door, we didn't have issues back then either. So I don't anticipate we'll really have issues with this. Okay, one other thing that we like to do is use some heat gun right here. And you want to focus on that edge like right here, and then it's very, very similar to vinyl because you want to get that face of that edge first, and then you kind of, once you get that, you can fold it over like so. And some of the areas you are going to have to work on it, but I would say it's all very comparable. It is going down very well. And I think I can't stress enough how important it would be to like let this dry, because that's going to be a very important component to making sure that it folds over well. Obviously in these testings, we're definitely not letting it dry at all. But as far as edges, no issues whatsoever. I think as long as there's enough material and there's something to grab, especially if the edge isn't going to grab, at least the workaround, I mean the inside edge, as long as there's that, I think it will have no issues whatsoever. But I love using IVIOS film. I think our customers will like it. The color is something that I'm excited about. There's actually a few bubbles right here. So it's been about, 5 minutes? And I just want to see, will it easily go away, and would it leave some sort of like a, I don't know, like a mark or something, right? So a lot of times, you know, sometimes you can miss it, which we just did over here. So I got rid of the bubble right here. I pushed it out this way, and it looks like I never had a bubble there. So about 5 minutes later, I like that film. I like that property. You want to be able to go back without causing a lot of issues. So I think I like that part about this film as well. So this is a night sky black from GSWF. So this brand have been doing color PPF for quite a long time. So they've been around. I've actually heard of them for a long time. Met them at SEMA, really good group of guys. But they've been making color PPF, and that's really all they do. Their whole slogan is, "We know PPF." Let's go ahead and get to the thickness. This is seeing 1.21. So the movability so far, here we go. Let me just get it all straightened out. You can see it moves well. In a way, it feels a little bit thinner. I can definitely see the difference between like this and this. This feels like way thicker than that. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily better, but I wonder if that's like the construction of the film, right? It had to be thicker since they have certain things that they added to IVIOS. It moves really well. And then let's see the sensitivity. I mean, these, like I said, it's not necessarily the best test, but I just want to see, you know, if the film, will be able to withstand a do-yourselfer as far as if they do it really, really hard. I'm just gonna push it down, right? So same thing, you're gonna get a line. It's pretty obvious. I did it pretty dang hard. This is just a pressure line. But other than that, gliding really, really easily. So we're gonna go ahead and finish out this whole area right here. So it almost looks like gloss black, like the Avery Dennison that we installed earlier. Unless, I mean, I would really like to see this outside because it has those metallic flakes, that kind of like white metallic flakes all around, but you don't see it until you look really close. So I wonder if it will, you know, shimmer a lot more in sunlight. So let's go ahead and finish this out. All right, so I'm just gonna wipe it down. And once I wipe it down, you can kind of see some of the speckles, or hopefully you can see it. And now let's go ahead and check the hydrophobic properties. Go ahead, do that. So you can see that it's not necessarily the same kind of result on this one. It's not as sleek as like IVIOS or Avery Dennison and the STEK as well. You can also see the way that it sits on the actual film. It doesn't bead up, so this one doesn't necessarily have that property. This is kind of cool. It's a little bit more unique than just standard gloss black, right? This is the night sky black, but the appearance looks really, really good. So let's go ahead. I already have the primer up. Seal all of this edges as well. So go ahead and do all this. Okay, so I'm going to just start with the corner right here. And I added some primer. In a way, the film almost feels a little softer. And that makes sense. Again, it is a lot thinner film than the one that I just installed. So that makes sense. Once I added some more heat, it definitely became a lot more malleable and sat down a lot easier. So heat is going to be an important process here. I would say the adhesion is a little bit lighter, but I think with a little bit of adhesion promoter and some time and some heat, it won't be an issue. But like I said, all PPF is going to be just a little bit harder to keep the edges down compared to like colored vinyl, right? So I like this film. I think it looks good. So this brand that we have next is Ultrafit Light Stone. And this brand is pretty awesome. Heard about them online, but then first met them. They got a really cool small team at SEMA. So I think SEMA this year, there were just so many PPF companies out there. But this is one of the ones that really kind of got my attention, right? So they got some really cool stuff happening. They got some really pretty colors. I mean, Phoenix Red is one of the ones I saw on a Cybertruck. So that looks really good. So let's go ahead and install this. But before we do, we are going to get the thickness. So we have seen all the way from 0.20 all the way to 0.26. So this one actually is 0.22. And we're just gonna go ahead, I already kind of have it aligned. Movability on this is pretty similar to everything else. Like it moves well. You can see it. I kind of already have this aligned. So I'm gonna go ahead and align this. So just initial like just reaction to this film, very, very smooth. Definitely can tell that it is hydrophobic. Cool, so I got the top part done. I'm gonna do the real quick test. You know, same thing here. It's always gonna do it, so, you know, make sure that you're gliding and you're not just stabbing. We're reading PPF really in general. But now that we have the top anchor down, we're gonna go ahead and, again, no issues with movability at all. Man, I just can't get over like how freaking clean those films look. Like all of it, to be honest. We've mostly been doing a lot of gloss, but I think it's because most of them that I found are going to be offering gloss colors. And the orange peel is very, very minimal. You can see it's not as like reflective as a black film, but you can see even in this light stone, I mean, it's very, very clear, like the reflection right there. So it has a very, very high appearance. I think it looks great. It's nice and slick, almost looks like paint, or it looks like paint, obviously better than paint. But let's check the hydrophobic properties. You know, this is, yeah, so this is very, very similar to all. This one also has that coating. I don't see any bubbles. Man, this just looks so good. Like this whole thing would look amazing if we did the whole thing. We're gonna go ahead, and again, this is the same thing. I've primered it before every door. We do the same thing, but we're gonna go ahead and flush it out with some tack solution first. And then I'm just gonna go get all the edges. So it's completely sealed. And just a reminder, normally, yes, I would prefer to let it dry a lot more, okay? Okay, one thing that I would probably adjust in my actual design is I would probably want a little bit more film, especially this top area. I just don't have a lot to grab, so if you look at this, I kind of mentioned that it doesn't quite stick to the actual rough edge. You're actually trying to go over it, and that's what really helps grab it. On the other hand, like this area on the top here, no issues grabbing. So very, very similar to all the other ones. Look at that. So we have the final film, and actually there's actually one more, but it's a bonus. Burnt orange. But Nanolink is, I first heard about them actually at SEMA as well. I mean, like I said, there's just been so many companies out there, but they've been around for a while, but they specialize in TPU, color PPF. That's really what they do. And I think they have some really cool colors and a good amount of colors, which is appealing to us as well. But one of the things they claim is that they have a production system where they have color-stable ceramics infused into it, which de-risk the lamination between the films. So there's different layers, the way that these films are made, and so that's what they say. They also talk about how their film is very repositionable, which it is, and we're going to get there, but it is pretty easy to position. So we're going to go ahead and measure it before we kind of get started. And it is about 0.20. So across all the films, we've seen 0.20 all the way to 0.26, but you can see that they are about the same. So I haven't done this yet until now. So if you've been watching up until now, thank you guys. And there's a bonus. But this is the thickness of a normal vinyl. This is 3M 2080, and the thickness of it is 0.12. It's about double the thickness. But it doesn't have some of the things like the self-healing abilities. And it has some aspects of that, but nowhere near the level of this. And it makes sense. It's way thicker. And we're going to go ahead and align it. This looks good. We got this aligned as well. So we have, I mean, this color looks kind of sick, actually. I'm not a big fan of orange, but I do really like this one. So this is kind of fun. I'm going to go ahead and just, same thing here. Be careful. It does create a line as well. So kind of like what I did earlier, the movability was perfectly fine. I mean, it moves really well. Even right now, you can see that I can shift this pretty easily. And if you hear this as well, just hear that. There's not a whole lot of area right now that's like sticking. Because I think you would have heard like a sound. Right, because that means that something's stuck. This part is the most satisfying part. Appearance, fantastic. Very, very similar to all of them. Like I said, the gloss is just phenomenal. So clean, right? I'm going to go ahead and put some water. It does have a coating. You can kind of see it sheet off like that, right? And that's what we're looking for. Boom. Just like that. So there's no problem there. We're going to go ahead and open it. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to try. I like trying it without really any assistance, no heat, and just see, does it stick? But before we do that, let's use some tack, flush all of that out, and then seal it. So there we go. For time's sake, we're going to go ahead and do that. And you can see that I got a lot of material right here. But so far right here at the top, no issues whatsoever. It's folding over pretty well. I don't think there's an issue. There's a couple areas where it's still kind of moist. So as far as the edge, I feel like this film needs a lot more help in terms of like the primer. So you could dab it a little bit more and then give it some help. And I think it'll be fine. But I don't think there's any film out there right now that I would say that doesn't require primer for the Cybertruck. Other cars, there are ways you could do it and get by without primer, but in this case, I would recommend it. Now let's go ahead and close this. IVIOS Forged Carbon Burgundy, and it is a very interesting film. It's supposed to give it that forged carbon look, obviously. And just like we've been doing across, wow, this is sleek. All our films, we're actually going to just check the thickness of it. It feels a little stiffer, if I'm being totally honest. And this is about, I think, 0.21. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do some alignment. So movability feels the same, not really much different. Like I said, slightly maybe stiffer, but movability about the same. That. we talk about a lot in the other, but even like the forged carbon, the glossiness on the color PPF is just incredible. Like the reflection, you can see right here, it just looks so freaking good. One thing I forgot to do is the sensitivity. I mean, it's gonna be the same, but just like all films, if you do stab at it, you will create lines. So just like that, you can, I mean, if I'm stabbing it that hard, like no one will do that. The gloss is still there. It's really, really nice. It's clear. You can tell the construction, I'm sure, is similar to the original one. Before we kind of move on to all the edges, we are going to just check for hydrophobicity. Very hard, difficult word, but you can see same thing. They got some really cool stuff going on. It just sheets off, which makes it a lot easier to keep this clean. But we got this edge right here. We're going to go ahead and flush it all out. And I don't think we necessarily have to do the edges because I can't imagine it'll be any different. But like I haven't dried it out, and you can see that it does. I do have primer on here, but it does stick fine, right? This edge right here, stuck fine. But why are we installing this? I think it's important to replicate it and then try to install it in the, I guess, perspective of a beginner. Not only are we test fitting some of the stuff, we can also just make sure that our customers are going to be set up for success. Like I don't think we'll sell anything if we don't have confidence that people will be able to do it, right? So that's just not how we do things. But this is also folding just fine. So I think the edges are about the same. Whether it's forged, it's the same film technology that the other one has. That sums up all 7 films done in less than a day. It was a long day, but we did it. Well, hopefully guys, this was insightful for you. Hopefully you learned something. You know, this is a little bit of our R&D process that we want to share with you so that you know what we work on, what we do, and how we do. So hopefully that was insightful. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. By the time that this video is out, the kit will be out. So we will put the links to our kit. Make sure you click on the subscribe button if you love our content, and we'll see you later.